Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
We are going to welcome Kristin Shane to the stage. She is recognized for transformational merchandising leader with proven success in developing and implementing effective strategies across diverse businesses and operational challenges at the retail level. She is known for developing high-performing teams and breaking industry norms to drive significant results. So she is with Petsmart and has been for quite some time, 2019. And so let's welcome her to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna Marie. And thank you. Oh, and I have a clicker and I have water. I have all the things. Here, let me just get sorted here real quick. This is so exciting that I feel honored not only to be asked to be here with you guys for the first one back, but to break the seal.
Yes.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Okay, here we go. When we think about leadership, particularly as women, we frame it in a way that sounds like all of the things that we're going to do for other people, right? We're going to develop other people. We're going to deliver for other people. We have something, a project or whatever that we have to deliver for somebody else. And that's part of it. But today we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why it is the most important to think about ourselves first. So we're going to talk about being selfish today. How does that feel? Pretty good, yeah. So I'm going to make the argument, and at the end you can tell me if I've been successful or not, that the best leaders, the ones that are the most effective, the ones that we look to and go, oh my gosh, she just looks like it's so easy. Those leaders take care of themselves first. They prioritize themselves first. That's why we say put your oxygen mask on first. So the best leaders prioritize themselves first, and we're going to talk about that today. Sound good? Okay, sounds good. So before we do that, selfless leadership starts by taking care of yourself first. Can we get just a teeny quick round of applause for Jacqueline, because she helped me put this whole thing together. And so in the spirit of raising each other up, let's hear for Jacqueline. Thank you. All right, so before we get started about leadership, I just want to tell you a little bit about someone who has taught me the most profound leadership lesson that I have ever had. It is not someone who set out to do that. This was not his intent. It sort of happened by accident. But I want to share it with you today. And it's not something I've ever really talked about publicly because it feels like we need to be all buttoned up and talk about all of our executive experiences. But this person is my dad. He's right there. His name is Bill. Yeah, he's cute. So let me just tell you a little bit about the most profound leadership lesson for me, which is betting on yourself. So I grew up in the Midwest, in the middle of Indiana. There was a cornfield in my backyard. And it was that sort of blue collar Midwest experience that if you're from the Midwest, you're like, yep, I know. I had the opportunity to watch my dad work his way up from a manufacturing job into the plant manager. And then one day he came home and he was in a suit. And I was like, dang, Dad, what happened? And he was like, I got promoted to sales. So here's what you need to know about my dad. He never went to college. He came from a pretty broken home. And it was a rough upbringing. He left when he was 18. My parents got married when they were 19. They're still married today. But his work ethic is pretty unbelievable. And there was one day that honestly could have just happened yesterday. That's like one of those days that you just remember in your mind, where he brought us on the kitchen and it was like family meeting. And I was like, oh, the first annual family meeting. Like, we've never had a family meeting before. What does that even mean? So as my brother and I go in the kitchen, we're sitting there. My mom didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. And he says to us, I'm going to start my own business. And we're like, cool, that sounds good. I mean, when you're in 6th grade, you have no idea what that means. So at the time he was 40, and I watched him over the next several months sit at the kitchen table. Do you guys, I don't know if you're going to remember those calculators that had like the tape? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So he had one of those, and like, I still remember the noise, like whatever. He had all the legal pads, pens. I mean, he's like writing notes, calculating things. Like, I have no idea. And several months later, he took us to the business he opened. We roll into like one of those, it was in the middle of Bremen, Indiana, cornfields everywhere. It was in one of those office parks. So we get there and we park, and it's just like garage doors for miles. You know what I'm talking about? So he like opens the garage door, and there's this big machine there. And it was like, oh, you know. And I was like, this is the business? It's like a machine. He's like, yeah. And he had his first employee. His name was Ron. And Ron showed us how the machine worked. So my dad made hoses, not garden hoses, but like the hoses that go from, that bring the water into like your washing machine or your dishwasher. So that happened. And let me be clear, like we were a very humble means. So that happened when my dad was 40. When my dad was 50, he sold the business, retired, hasn't worked since, and lives a very lavish lifestyle in Florida, although he is always the humble sort of Indiana guy you would never know. As we sit here today, every hose in all of your washing machines and all of your dishwashers comes from Bremen in Indiana, from what that guy started. So it worked out. And so for me, like watching him do that, I was like, okay, so here's how it works. You decide what you want to do, you work really hard, and then you retire and never have to worry about $1 again. Like, that's just how it works. Like, in my own mind, I was like, okay, but that helped me understand that betting on yourself is one of the most important leadership lessons you can have. So I want to tell you about my first bet on myself. And I only have 20 or 30 minutes, so I can't tell you about all the bets, but my first bet was, so I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. And so when I finished at Indiana University, go Hoosiers, I had a job offer at Accenture. And so I've seen him cry 2 times. Once at my wedding, and once when I came home with this job offer from Accenture. And it like completely caught me off guard, but he was just like, I never thought, like, just to him, he just never thought that, I mean, Accenture is this huge company, you know, they're global, and, you know, I was making probably at the time more money than he was, because he was in the phases of starting his company. And so he was so excited. And so I was in this job that he cried about. And so I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. 3 or 4 years in, I was miserable. This is not what I was supposed to be doing. I was learning a lot. I was trying to like take advantage, but I was not happy. And I got to thinking about this lesson that he accidentally taught me, which is betting on yourself. And so I decided, instead of sitting in this job, miserable, unclear of why I was miserable, or is this what work is supposed to feel like, or whatever, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I feel called to do. Now, this is easy to do at the ripe old age of 25. So I'm not suggesting that you all quit your jobs and like go do what I did. But I had always wanted to join the Peace Corps, something that from Accenture makes no sense. So I sold all of my things. I moved out of my condo in Chicago, and I moved to El Salvador. I lived in a hut if anyone puts this picture on the internet, like, you're in big trouble. I mean, Jacqueline's like, we need a picture. I was like, do you really though? I don't know if we need a picture. But here I am. I'm in the middle of my little town in the middle of El Salvador. And at the time, I couldn't totally articulate for you why I needed to do this. But in my heart, I was like, this is where I need to be. I feel called to do this. I've always wanted to do it. I did the right thing after college and went to Accenture. I was miserable. I just have to do this. And here's what I learned. A year in, I would have said to you, this is the loneliest, hardest thing I have ever done. However, I felt so fulfilled. I had the opportunity to work with a women's co-op group. So these women made hand-woven rugs and clay pots and these beautiful artisanal goods. And I helped them figure out how to sell them to a third party and then take them to retail. And to me, I was so fulfilled. I was so happy. I was like, this is it. And somebody was like, you're gonna stay in El Salvador for like the next 20 years? Like, what are you doing? And what I realized was, I think retail is something that's really interesting to me. This is something I have to explore. Again, not exactly sure, don't know the end game, not sure the next step, but in my heart, I was like, I think this is it. And I think that's important to know, because betting on ourselves means almost more heart than head. And if you do that, you're able to go into your experiences with a clear head and a full heart and make the right decisions for you. So, as I said, I worked with these women's groups. I was able to help them figure out how to bring all these beautiful goods to market. And I was like, I think retail is something that's quite interesting. How am I going to do that? So I studied for the GMAT. I came back. I went to business school, and I chased down Target. So Target is located in Minneapolis. And I was like, they recruited on campus. It felt like everything was meant to be. And so I took that role at Target. I was in 9 jobs in 11 years. I absolutely fell in love with retail. I continued to make bets on myself. And today, here I am, the chief merchant at Petsmart. So I will tell you that I didn't get here because I had a very well-crafted plan. I like to joke that I'm going to when I write my book, I'm never writing a book, let's be clear. But when I write my book, it's going to be like, that was always the plan, making it up as I go along. Like, the thing that is consistent is I have made choices about me, not about people around me, not about what I should do, not about like the charted path. I've literally looked internally and made choices for me. And it is something that my dad taught me in 6th grade. And my message to you, and the reason why I share this with you, is 2 reasons. Number 1, who's a mama? Oh, yes. So all the mamas out there, all the mamas who have the mom guilt, don't tell me you don't have it. Yes, you do. Here's what you need to know. I'm gonna cry. Your kids are looking at you with absolute adoration. You don't see it right now. You don't, because it's hard and you have so much going on. But you just need to know the lessons that you are teaching your kids, they cannot learn anyplace else. And it is because you're not doing it on purpose. They are watching you do it all. They are watching you be resilient. They are watching you be a leader. They are watching you be a mom. They are watching you be the head of household. You can't teach that. You can't sit down and go, okay, guys, now I'm going to talk to you about what it means to like make it up as you go along. No, they're watching you do it. They're watching you do it. And so what's going to happen is they're going to believe that they can do it too. And that is really important. So bet on yourself. And this idea that if you see it, you believe it is so profound. And that's hopefully what you got from my story. But don't believe me. I want to share another story with you about, I'm a big runner. I love to run. It's way cheaper than therapy. So I'm not trying to break any records, but it's something that's really important to me. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But this idea of if we see it, we believe it is so true. It's been proven. So for those of us who are runners, there is a guy. His name is Roger Bannister. You know who Roger Bannister was? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Never had anyone ever broken the 4-minute mile. Thousands of people tried. It was deemed impossible. Like scientists said, the human body can't run faster than 4 minutes. People tried. By the way, they're doing that now with the marathon. They're saying nobody can run it faster than 2 hours. You wait. So one day in 1954 in Oxford, England, it was raining. Roger Bannister ran 1 mile in 3 minutes, 59 and 6/10 of a second. Like he did it. So that was cool. So people were like, ooh, once in a lifetime thing. 45 days later, someone else did it. And now as we sit here today, more than 1,000 people have run faster than 4 minutes. Why? Because if we see it, we believe it. And so betting on yourself is important, not only for your kids, but for you. Because if you show yourself you can do it, you'll do it again and again and again. There's Roger. He doesn't look particularly comfortable, but he did it. So good for you, Roger. We'll take that lesson. Thank you. So listen, my message is for you today. Bet on yourself. Make the selfish move. Seeing is believing. And when you do it, momentum propels us. That might feel like a lot, right? I'm not asking you to like go out and quit your job and go live in a hut in El Salvador. So today I want to talk to you with that as a backdrop about 5 easy things that we can all do. You can walk out of here today and do them today. They're easy. They're super selfish. And I submit to you that if you do those things, those little things, they're the catalyst for the big things. Okay? You with me? We're going to go there? Okay, here we go. So there are 5 things. They're selfish. They're all about you. And if you do them, you will be a better leader. Let me tell you why. Here's the first one. Make movement a priority. Anybody know who that is? Yes, that's right, Kathleen Switzer. So this girl was like, oh yeah, women can't run the Boston Marathon. She just did it. And the photo after this is all of those police officers realizing she's a woman and like trying to take her down, and she ran away from finished the Boston Marathon. Go, Kathleen, thank you. There has been a lot of research done about how we perform as leaders. In 2001, you guys should look this up. In 2001, Harvard Business Review published a study called The Corporate Athlete, The Makings of a Corporate Athlete. And what this study showed was that the best leaders, or to reach our full potential, we have to think about our careers, our jobs, how we show up every day like athletes. Why? Well, let's just talk about athletes for a second. So athletes have a season, right? So they have one part of the year where they have to be at peak performance. And even in the season, they have like 1 game a week. And even in that game, it's like 2 hours a day where they're on and they have to deliver, right? They spend all year preparing for those 2 hours. And all year, they're thinking about what they eat, how they sleep, how they move, how they train, etc. It's a thing. It's proven. There's a lot of science into it. Okay, let's talk about us. We wake up at, what time did you get up? Anybody? 5:30. We wake up at 5:30 in the morning. If we're lucky, we did a little workout. It probably wasn't our best effort, but we checked the box. After that, we probably got dressed, and we probably got the kids ready. We probably packed lunch. We probably took them to school. Then after that, we probably drove to work. And then we were in meeting, where we were on, evaluated. How is she? She looks tired today. I don't know. She's kind of bitchy. I don't know. Like, so all day. Okay, so then we're done with work, and then we go home. We get the boys, we take them to hockey practice. We get feedback from the daughter that the tights weren't in the dance bag. Is that my job? I don't think that's my job. We take them to dance, we get them to dance, they do the thing, we take them home, we get dinner. On the way home, we maybe grab a rotisserie chicken because we didn't make anything for dinner. We unpack lunches, we repack lunches, we put all the bags together, and then we have like 14 seconds to have me time, and then we go to bed. Every day. 365. That's what we do. We prioritize everybody else but ourselves. You guys, objects in motion stay in motion. Objects at rest stay at rest. I am going to ask you today to prioritize a movement practice, something. I don't care what it is. So I like to run. I go running. You might say to yourself, there's no way I'm running. Fine, go on a walk the dog, do yoga. Whether it's 1 minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I want you to develop a movement practice. Not just because of all of the health benefits associated. We all know that you know, you have more energy, you sleep better. Movement is the catalyst for making better decisions about diet. Like all of the things that we already know, but having the discipline, not the motivation. Motivation is cute. I'm not talking about motivation. The discipline to say, every day when I get up, I'm going to do something. I'm not asking you to break a 4-minute mile, just do something, some kind of movement practice. That sounds easy. How do I do that? Well, there's a book called Atomic Habits. Have you guys heard of it? It's like so good. So if you haven't heard of it, download it on Audible, because who has time to read a book? Throw it in your earpods, and when you're doing your movement practice, you're going to listen to it. But one of the things that James Clear, the author, talks about is this idea of tiny habits, and letting tiny habits be the motivator or the catalyst for the bigger thing. So for me, my tiny habit is every single day when I get up, I turn my alarm off, I walk into my closet, and I put my workout clothes on every day. My habit is not I go work out. My habit is I put my workout clothes on. Because how awful is it to take the workout clothes off when they're not sweaty to get ready? You're like, oh, I just put my workout clothes on. And then you can't not do it. You cannot not do it. So 4 tips for making movement a priority. Start where you're at. Do not go sign up for a marathon. Don't go think you're going to do a Ragnar. Just start where you're at. If you don't have a movement practice today, fine. Do something. 5 minutes. Start there. Just start where you're at. I'm not asking you to revamp your life. I'm just saying start where you're at. Prioritize yourself. Number 2, consistency over everything. Consistency over everything. Not intensity, not how much, consistency. I don't have time today. Yes, you do. Do you have 3 minutes? Okay, fine. Do 20 burpees. Call it a day. Okay? Consistency over everything. Streaks matter. Like, we know this. Number 3, I talked about tiny habits. You can use mine if that's helpful for you. If it sounds awful, then you don't have to use mine. But discipline over motivation. In the movement practice world, in the fitness world, people talk about motivation. I just articulated what our days look like. If you open your eyes at 5:30 and you're motivated, like, please come take the mic from me and tell us your secret. It is not about motivation, you guys. It's about discipline. It's about discipline because you are prioritizing yourself, you're betting on yourself, and you know that if you do this movement practice, it will help you in the long run. So that's number 1. Number 2, make space for dreaming and thinking. This is so critically important. So critically important. Why? Because our days are so packed. And when we're in the packed day, we're like head down making decisions, and we don't step back, put our heads up, and make the bigger decision, the more strategic decision, the bigger leadership decision. And so making space in your day, even if it's only 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, to just sit in contemplative thought is incredibly important. So for me, I do it when I run. You can do it. You can meditate. You can do yoga. You can do it on a walk. Maybe you like to cook, whatever it is. Make space for dreaming and thinking, but not just 5 minutes a day. So I want you to do that. But the other thing to think about is when things get crazy, it's the first thing that goes. And so make time when things are crazy for bigger bursts of your ability to just sit in your own thoughts. So I'll give you an example. One of my jobs at Target was to launch the Canada initiative. So if you're not familiar with that, it did not go very well. So we opened 124 stores and then we closed 124 stores. And that's a whole different speech, but it was crazy. I had 3 kids, one I had just given birth to. There was so much going on. And I was like not the leader I needed to be successful for my team, regardless of the chaos that was going on around me. And I sat down with my husband one day and I was like, I need something else to get myself out of the chaos that is work. And he was like, okay, well, let me know what that is. And so I randomly signed up for a baking class. And so every Saturday for 4 hours, I went and made cupcakes. And those 4 hours were an absolute game changer for me. And that experience was so chaotic. And when we came back, most of the people that went to Canada were let go, and I was the only one that wasn't. And I swear to God, it was for cupcakes. Because when I was in that class for 4 hours on Saturday, I could step out of my chaos and look at myself and go, that is not who I am. That's not who I need to be. From a leadership perspective, I don't want to be that. And so every week I got to reset and show up and reset expectations for my team, realign what success looked like, be the catalyst for optimism in a world where everything was falling apart, and nobody else showed up like that. And so this is incredibly important for us to be successful, and it looks selfish. Really, we're like, the house is burning and you're baking cupcakes? Yes, I was. So every day through your movement practice, most importantly, when things get crazy, schedule your PTO and use that time to think big. Number 3, be yourself. So easy to say. Let me talk to you a little bit about this. So, did you guys watch the US Open? Who knows what 3 words this GOAT said when interviewed? The interviewer says, "Are you surprised at your level of play?" Do you guys remember what she said? 3 words. "I'm just Serena." Not like, "Oh, I have a really great team," or "I've been working really hard," or "I'm just grateful that it's cool out." Like, that's what we do, right? She literally said, "I'm just Serena." Like, next question. Name me someone who has had more scrutiny, who has had more people betting against her, who has gotten more criticism because she's too big, she's too black, she's too loud, she's too whiny. We don't like her outfits. And she literally rolled in and was like, "I'm just Serena." Unapologetically. Like, talk about someone who is authentically herself. We have to use that as an example. And we have all had Serena moments where they have said, "Oh, she's a little too direct. She's kind of intimidating. She's too loud. She thinks we know it all." And so I'm not suggesting that you roll in and go, "I'm just Kristin," but I am suggesting that you really think about who it is that you are and take the feedback and take the coaching. And one of the things that I learned through my career is we're going to get the feedback. It's up to us what we do with it. And so I was always told all of those things. "You're too loud. You have a big personality," all of the things. And I went to a coach, and one thing she told me was ticks on a dial. So I remember this. What does that mean? People are excited. When someone says to me, "What's your superpower?" Here's what I say. I can get anybody excited about anything. I can. Like, tell me the most mundane thing, I will get you excited about it. I don't know why, it's just something that I can do. You all have superpowers. That has what's made me successful. It's also what gets in the way sometimes when I'm in a boardroom and there are a million people there and they don't know who I am. Like, who's the girl in the leather pants? I don't know, right? So like, ticks on a dial. So I can be me. This is me. I am me to you. I look at you. I see the nodding. I'm like, "I love you. You are my people." But I can also roll into the boardroom and not do that. So I'm still myself. It's just I can turn the dial up or turn the dial down. So think about the feedback that you get. I'm not telling you to ignore it, but I'm telling you to think about it like clicks on the dial. That's selfish leadership. Be true to yourself. Create the culture and be intentional about the culture you want to create. This is so important. What are your values? Not your company's values, your values. People work for people, not companies. So you got to be clear about what your values are. If you asked my team, what are Kristin's core values? Here's what they would say. Accountability is her love language. That's what they would say, every single one, to a T. Accountability is her love language. Why? Because I think accountability is the catalyst for a lot of things. It requires you to be vulnerable and shed the armor and just be clear about what you did and what you didn't do. 2, it requires you to tell the truth. And the truth is really important. Transparency is important. And number 3, it allows to create an environment where we can fail, be honest about it, and still move forward. So accountability is my love language. What are your core values? The worst is to say my accountability is my love language and then have someone roll into a meeting and be accountable and then blow them up. Like, not good. So think about what your values are and then create the culture that you want to be. I happen to be the executive sponsor for the LGBTQ Associate Resource Group because another one of my core values is my why is to figure out how get people to show up authentically themselves. Okay, the last thing is to be a developer of talent. And so you may be sitting there going, well, that doesn't feel very selfish. Let me tell you why. The best leaders understand that it's people above everything else. It's people above everything else. And so as humans, what fills our cup? I already know the answer. You don't have to tell me. Every single one of you has your cup filled when you feel like you have impact. When you feel like someone is successful because of what you did. When someone on your team says to you, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you. I didn't actually believe in myself, but I did it because I knew you believed in me. Like, that is why we're here. That's why we have kids. Like, that is what fills us up. And so don't resist the urge to do it all yourself. So how do you develop talent? Number one, we all know this is our most important job. Number two, delegate. So all of the amazing work you're doing, figure out how to reach down into your organization and pull people up to bring them along with you to help develop them working on the coolest stuff that you're all working on. Nelson Mandela said, lead from the back so that everyone believes that they're in the front. So think about how you pull people up from your organization and help develop them. And then lastly, don't fear the truth. Give them the feedback. Bring them along. Don't make it awkward. Just tell them what they need to do to be better. So these are my 5 things. And I think a lot about that day in El Salvador when I got there with my arms spread and she took the picture, and in my head I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I hope today that you saw that, yes, betting on yourself is important, but there are 5 easy ways to do it. And if we do it every day, they end up being catalysts for our ability to be the best leaders we can. No Salvadoran hut required. Thanks, you guys.
Hey, my friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or a networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.